For over 3 decades, a mansion in Newport Beach held the untold secrets of an American icon. When John Wayne passed in 1979, its doors were locked, its contents sealed away from the world, every photograph, every letter, every personal belonging frozen in time, waiting to tell their story. No one knew what lay behind those closed doors until 2011, when they were finally opened. What they discovered inside would shock the world. A hidden will that tore his family apart, lost treasures worth millions, and revelations that would forever change how we see the legend of the Duke. The man who embodied the American West had secrets, some buried so deep they wouldn't surface for decades. This is the story of John Wayne's fortune, the family battles that erupted after his death, and the truth that remained locked away in his mansion for over 30 years. Born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907 in Winterset, Iowa, he entered the world as a 13-pound newborn, so large that local newspapers found it newsworthy. But his size wasn't the only thing that set him apart from the beginning. At just 3 years old, he had his first brush with death, falling into an icy creek. If not for a passing stranger who pulled him from the freezing water, America's greatest Western star might never have lived to see his 4th birthday. That brush with fate seemed to mark him for something special, a resilience that would define both the man and the myth he would become. His childhood wasn't easy. When his father's pharmacy business failed, the Morrison family left Iowa behind, heading west to California in search of a fresh start. They settled in Glendale, where young Marion would find his first new identity. Local firefighters would see him walking everywhere with his Airedale Terrier Duke and started calling them Big Duke and Little Duke. The nickname stuck, and from that moment on, he refused to answer to anything else. Marion Morrison was beginning to fade, and Duke was taking his place. Growing up in California, Duke had one dream: football. His talent and determination earned him a scholarship to the University of Southern California in 1925. Playing offensive line for the USC Trojans, he seemed destined for athletic glory. But fate had other plans. A single body surfing accident changed everything. One powerful wave, an awkward landing, and his shoulder was permanently damaged. Just like that, his scholarship vanished, along with his dreams of football stardom. Duke Morrison found himself adrift, searching for a new purpose. Desperate for work, he took a job as a prop man at Fox Studios in 1927, earning $35 a week. The work was far from glamorous, moving furniture, arranging sets, running endless errands for demanding film crews, but it gave him an education in filmmaking that no school could provide. His first screen appearance wasn't even credited. In 1926, he appeared as a background football player in Brown of Harvard, barely visible in the frame. But that brief taste of acting awakened something in him. He wanted more. The next decade saw him fighting through Hollywood's trenches. Between 1930 and 1939, he appeared in over 80 low-budget westerns, most filmed in just days, most forgotten just as quickly. The work was exhausting, the pay meager, his future uncertain. Many nights, dinner consisted of a can of beans heated on a hot plate in his cramped apartment. By 1938, he seriously considered giving up. Hollywood had worn him down, and his dream seemed further away than ever. Then came the moment that changed everything. Director John Ford had been quietly watching Duke's struggles. Ford saw something in him that others missed, a natural presence, a rugged authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. But the studios weren't interested. To them, he was just another failed actor in a town full of them. Ford knew Duke needed one big role to prove himself. That chance came with Stagecoach in 1939. The only problem? The studio wanted a star, someone like Gary Cooper. Ford fought for Duke, insisting no one else could play the Ringo Kid. When the studio pushed back, Ford pushed harder, threatening to walk away from the project entirely. Finally, they relented. Marion Morrison completed his final transformation, emerging as John Wayne. His first scene in Stagecoach became legendary, a dramatic close-up as he spun his rifle, the camera zooming in on his confident smirk. It lasted just seconds, but it took 27 takes to get right. Wayne was so nervous he kept fumbling the simple move, but when he finally nailed it, that moment turned him into a star. Stagecoach wasn't just a hit, it was a sensation. The film earned 7 Academy Award nominations and introduced audiences to the man who would redefine the Western genre. But despite his breakout success, Wayne was still treated like a second-tier actor, paid just $3,700 for the film, a fraction of what Hollywood's elite were making. Even so, there was no turning back. John Wayne was no longer an unknown extra struggling to pay his rent. He had arrived. With his rise to fame came an unlikely partnership that would shape his career, his collaboration with John Ford. Together, they created some of the greatest films in cinema history. Over the next 50 years, they made 14 movies, forever changing Hollywood's idea of the Western hero. But it wasn't always easy. Ford was known for being harsh, and he treated Wayne worse than most. On the set of The Searchers in 1956, Ford humiliated Wayne in front of the entire crew, making him redo a simple scene just picking up a gun 17 times. Wayne took it without complaint. He knew Ford's methods, however brutal, pushed him to be his best. That toughness, both on and off screen, defined Wayne's image. He became the ultimate symbol of American masculinity, turning down roles in films like The Maltese Falcon and High Noon because they didn't fit his persona. He refused to play villains, refused to show weakness, and refused to compromise. To the world, he was more than an actor. He was the embodiment of the cowboy spirit. By the 1950s and 60s, John Wayne wasn't just making movies, he was shaping American culture. His films like The Alamo and True Grit weren't just blockbusters, they were statements. But behind the fame, behind the iconic image, there was another story, one filled with personal struggles, hidden conflicts, and secrets that would only come to light after his death. John Wayne wasn't just a legend on screen, his personal life was just as dramatic as the roles he played. Behind the rugged, all-American image, his love life was filled with passion, betrayal, and explosive conflicts. 3 marriages, multiple affairs, and a romance that nearly ended in gunfire painted a picture of a man as unpredictable as the Wild West he so often portrayed. His first marriage was to Josephine Saenz in 1933, a quiet, deeply religious woman from a wealthy family. Wayne was still trying to make his name in Hollywood, and at first it seemed perfect. They had 4 children together, and Josephine stood by him through years of struggle. But as Wayne's fame grew, so did the distance between them. Hollywood demanded long hours, and Wayne was rarely home. His on-screen persona as a tough, independent cowboy became his real-life identity. He lived for the work, for the fame, and for the adventure. Josephine wanted stability, a family man who would be home for dinner. By the late 1940s, their marriage was crumbling. The final blow came when Josephine discovered Wayne's affair with Marlene Dietrich, one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars. Their affair lasted nearly a decade, full of passion and secrecy. Dietrich was unlike anyone Wayne had known, bold, fearless, and completely intoxicating. But she wasn't interested in marriage, and Wayne wouldn't leave Hollywood behind for her. In 1945, his marriage to Josephine officially ended. Soon after, he married his second wife, Esperanza Bauer, a fiery Mexican actress with a dangerous temper. Their relationship was chaos from the start. Esperanza was deeply jealous of Wayne's co-stars, convinced he was constantly having affairs. Her jealousy turned violent one night when Wayne returned home late from a party. Esperanza, drunk and enraged, grabbed a gun and aimed it at him as he walked through the door. She pulled the trigger, but the shot missed. Wayne left that night and never looked back. By 1954, they were divorced. His third and final marriage was to Pilar Palé, a Peruvian actress, nearly 20 years his junior. They married in 1954 and had 3 children together. For a time, it seemed Wayne had found lasting love. But once again, his career took priority. By 1973, their marriage was effectively over, though they never divorced. Wayne moved in with his secretary, Pat Stacy, who became his final companion. Rumors of other affairs followed Wayne throughout his life, particularly regarding his chemistry with frequent co-star Maureen O'Hara. While O'Hara never confirmed their relationship, her grandson later suggested there was something real between them, passionate but impossible to sustain. Wayne's personal life may have been turbulent, but there was one thing he was certain about: his dream of making the Alamo. For over 15 years, he obsessed over bringing the historic battle to the big screen. He didn't just want a star in it, he wanted complete control. When studios hesitated, Wayne did the unthinkable. He mortgaged nearly everything he owned to fund the film himself. The budget ballooned to $12 million, an unheard of amount in 1960. Wayne insisted on authenticity, building a full-scale replica of the Alamo in Texas, brick by brick. Over 1.5 million adobe bricks were used, and the set was so massive it became a tourist attraction. The film required thousands of extras, hundreds of horses, and a grueling 79-day shoot in blistering heat. Despite Wayne's passion, the Alamo failed at the box office. While it earned several Oscar nominations, critics were divided, and the film struggled to make back its enormous budget. Wayne was devastated. He had gambled everything, and the loss left him in serious financial trouble. For the first time in years, the invincible cowboy looked vulnerable. In 1964, Wayne faced an even greater battle: cancer. A lifetime of smoking up to 6 packs a day had caught up with him. Doctors discovered a malignant tumor in his lung and gave him a 50% chance of survival. Most actors would have hidden their diagnosis, afraid of looking weak, but not Wayne. He went public, encouraging fans to get screened, even giving cancer a nickname, the Big C, to make it less frightening. Surgeons removed his entire left lung and 2 ribs, leaving him in constant pain. Yet just 5 months later, he was back on set, refusing to let illness dictate his life. He continued acting, continued working, continued being John Wayne, but cancer wasn't finished with him. In 1979, he was diagnosed again, this time with stomach cancer. He kept it secret, unwilling to let the public see him fade. His last film, The Shootist in 1976, was painfully close to reality. He played an aging gunfighter dying of cancer, a role that felt more like a farewell than fiction. He was weak during filming, needing oxygen between scenes, but refused to let anyone see him struggle. In one particularly grueling moment, his horse stumbled, nearly throwing him off. He tore a muscle in his shoulder, but finished the scene without complaint. Wayne's battle with cancer was one he couldn't win. On June 11, 1979, he passed away at UCLA Medical Center at age 72. The news shook Hollywood and his millions of fans worldwide. President Jimmy Carter called him a symbol of American courage. Thousands gathered outside the hospital and his home, leaving flowers, cowboy hats, and handwritten letters. But the real shock came after his death, not from the public, but from his will. Despite decades of success, his estate was surprisingly small. At the time of his death, John Wayne's fortune was estimated at just $6.85 million, around $25 million today's money. Compared to other Hollywood legends, this was far less than expected. Then came the biggest surprise. He left nothing to Pilar, his third wife. They had never officially divorced, yet she was completely cut out of his will. Instead, nearly everything was divided among his 7 children from his first 2 marriages. The omission of Pilar sparked years of speculation. Had Wayne intentionally written her out? Had his fortune been drained by bad investments? Or had something more secretive happened to his wealth? Adding to the mystery was the sudden sale of his beloved yacht, Wild Goose, shortly before his death. Once a World War II minesweeper, the yacht had been Wayne's sanctuary. He spent countless days on it, hosting friends and escaping Hollywood. Yet just before his passing, it was quietly sold for $750,000. For over 30 years, his Newport Beach mansion remained untouched, locked away from the world. When it was finally opened in 2011, over 700 personal items were discovered. Among them was his last driver's license, which sold at auction for $89,500. But Wayne's legacy faced new challenges decades after his death. In 1971, he gave an interview to Playboy magazine that would resurface in 2019, igniting controversy. His comments about race, Native Americans, and social issues shocked modern audiences. The backlash was immediate and intense. Activists called for his name to be removed from John Wayne Airport in Orange County. The University of Southern California removed an exhibit honoring him. A debate erupted: should we judge historical figures by modern standards? His son, Ethan Wayne, defended him, arguing his father's words were being taken out of context. Others insisted his contributions to cinema outweighed his personal views. The controversy forced America to confront difficult questions about how we remember our icons. Today, John Wayne remains a complex figure in American culture. His films helped define Hollywood's golden age, but his personal views challenge modern sensibilities. His name still adorns buildings, and his movies still play, but now they come with conversations about the man behind the legend. Was he the ultimate American hero, or a symbol of an era whose time has passed? His story reminds us that legacies are never simple, that our icons are human, and that history's judgment can shift like desert sand. In the end, John Wayne was more than just an actor. He was an institution, a symbol of American individualism, the face of Hollywood's golden age. His presence shaped the Western genre, his films became legendary, and his name became synonymous with strength and determination. But behind the cowboy hat and larger-than-life persona was a man whose legacy grows more complicated with time. The revelations that surfaced over the years, from his controversial statements to the family conflicts surrounding his estate, have left many questioning how he should be remembered. His influence on cinema remains undeniable. His impact on American culture is indelible. Yet his story reminds us that even legends can be flawed, that time can change how we view our heroes, and that the truth is often more complex than the myths we create. The secrets locked in his Newport Beach mansion for 3 decades added layers to his mystery. The sealed letters, lost memorabilia, and puzzling financial decisions paint a picture of a man who, despite his fame and fortune, remained enigmatic, even in death. He was a Hollywood icon, but he was also human, flawed, complex, and at times deeply controversial. His legacy continues to spark debate, forcing us to confront difficult questions about how we remember our past and who we choose to honor. So where does that leave us? Should we continue to celebrate John Wayne as the legend he was, or is it time to reconsider his place in history? His films still play, his image still looms large, but in an era where legacies are constantly being re-examined, his name now comes with questions that weren't being asked before. Was he the ultimate American hero, or a symbol of an era whose time has passed? That decision, in the end, is left to history and to you.